Do you ever forget words when you speak English? You start talking and suddenly your mind goes blank. Don't worry. Crystal went through the same thing. And in this video, she will show you how to fix it. Part 1, it happens to me too. Hi everyone, it's Crystal here. Sometimes when I speak English, my mind just goes completely blank. I'm in the middle of a sentence, everything's going great, and suddenly, poof, the word I need disappears. I can see it in my head. I know it starts with the letter P or maybe B, but my brain refuses to help me. And then I panic a little. Has that ever happened to you? I think it happens to almost every English learner. And trust me, you're not alone. I still remember one of my first English classes in high school. The teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves. Easy, right? Just say your name, your age, and one hobby. When it was my turn, I stood up, smiled confidently, and said, "Hi, my name is Crystal. I am," and then silence. I forgot how to say my age. I knew the number in my mind, but I couldn't find the English word. I felt everyone's eyes on me, waiting. My face turned red like a tomato. I laughed nervously and finally whispered, 16. Everyone laughed, but in a friendly way. Still, inside, I felt so embarrassed. I thought, oh no, I can't even say my age in English. How will I ever speak fluently? But that was just the beginning of my English journey. Later, I realized that forgetting words isn't a sign of being bad at English. It's a sign that you're using English. Because when we actually try to speak, our brain starts working so hard. It's translating, choosing grammar, building sentences, managing pronunciation, and sometimes it just needs a break. So forgetting a word, that's totally normal. I used to think native speakers never forget words. But after living in an English-speaking country for a while, I noticed something funny. Even native speakers forget words too. They say things like, "What's that thing called?" or "It's on the tip of my tongue." That made me feel so much better because if even they forget words sometimes, why should I feel bad about it? Let me tell you another story. Once I was at a coffee shop trying to order a drink. I wanted to say iced caramel latte, but my brain completely froze. I remembered ice and coffee, but not the word caramel. So I said, "Can I have a coffee with cold, sweet, brown sauce?" The barista smiled and said, "You mean caramel?" I laughed so hard, but guess what? I never forgot that word again. Moments like that used to make me nervous, but now I look back and think that's how I learned. Every mistake became a small memory, and every forgotten word became a funny story I could tell later. So if you ever forget words when you speak English, don't panic. It doesn't mean your English is bad. It means your brain is learning, growing, and trying to communicate in a new language. That's something to be proud of. Whenever it happens, just smile, take a deep breath, and keep going. Use simple words, describe what you mean, or even laugh about it. People will understand you, and more importantly, they'll feel comfortable talking with you. In this video, I'm going to share how I went from constantly forgetting words to feeling calm, confident, and even creative when I speak English. Because I promise you can do it too. So stay with me and let's start this little journey together.
Part 2. Why Our Mind Goes Blank. Hey again, it's Crystal. In the last part, I told you about those moments when I completely forget a word while speaking English. Today, I want to talk about why that happens, because when we understand the reason, it becomes a lot easier to fix it. You see, our brain is like a computer with many open tabs. When you're learning English, your brain is doing so many things at once. It's trying to remember vocabulary, think about grammar, form sentences, pronounce words correctly, and maybe even worry about whether you sound okay. That's a lot, right? So sometimes your brain just says, nope, too much, and it freezes. That's why we suddenly forget even simple words we definitely know. It's kind of funny because I used to think forgetting words meant I didn't study enough. But actually, it usually means I was nervous. Let me tell you a story. When I was in college, I joined an English conversation club. It was supposed to be a fun place to practice English. But during my first meeting, I was so nervous. There were students from different countries, Japan, Brazil, Spain, and of course, native speakers too. When it was my turn to talk, I wanted to say something simple like, I like reading books. But suddenly, I forgot the word reading. Can you imagine the word reading? One of the first words I ever learned. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My brain went completely blank. Everyone waited, smiling politely. My heart was racing. Then one girl gently said, "Do you mean reading?" I nodded quickly and we all laughed. That's when I realized it wasn't that I didn't know the word, it's that I was nervous. When we feel nervous, our brain focuses on the emotion instead of the language. It's like a traffic jam in your mind. The words are there, but they can't move forward because your emotions are blocking the way. So, the first reason we forget words is nervousness. The second reason is that we often learn words in the wrong way. We memorize long lists, repeat them over and over, but never actually use them. It's like knowing someone's name from Instagram but never meeting them in real life. You recognize the name, but your brain doesn't truly connect it to anything. When I started practicing English more naturally, by listening to real stories, watching movies, and talking with friends, I noticed something magical. The words I used in real conversations became automatic. I didn't need to search for them anymore. They just came out. There's also a third reason. We think too much. Sometimes we try to speak perfectly. We want to sound smart, use advanced vocabulary, and impress people. But that pressure makes it harder to speak. When we focus too much on being perfect, we forget to be natural. I used to overthink every sentence. Should I say did or have done? Is it say or tell? What if they don't understand me? By the time I finished thinking, the conversation had already moved on. Later, I learned that even if I make small grammar mistakes, it's okay. People care more about the message than the grammar. Once I stopped worrying so much about being perfect, speaking became easier and I forgot fewer words. So, if your mind goes blank when you speak English, remember, it's not because you're bad at English. It's because your brain is overloaded, your nerves are too active, or you're trying too hard to sound perfect. All of those things are totally normal. Next time it happens, just
smile and say something simple like, "Oh, I forgot the word, but it's like," and describe it. That small trick will help you keep the conversation going, and your confidence will grow faster than you think. In the next part, I'll tell you how I started to train my brain to remember words better even when I was nervous. It's something anyone can do, and it made a huge difference for me. Part 3. How I trained my brain to remember words. Hey, it's Crystal again. So, in the last part, we talked about why we forget words when we speak English. The nerves, the overthinking, the pressure to be perfect. Now, I want to share how I personally trains my brain to remember words better and speak more confidently. I didn't find a magic formula, but I did discover a few small things that made a big difference over time. Think of it like exercising your memory muscles. The more you train them, the stronger they become. The first big change I made was this. I stopped memorizing words and started living with them. You see, I used to have this huge notebook full of English words. I'd write new ones every day, 20, sometimes 30 words. I felt like I was doing something productive, but honestly, I couldn't remember most of them a week later. Why? Because I never used them. They were just sitting there, in my notebook, not in my brain. One day, my English teacher told me something that completely changed the way I learn. She said, "Don't collect words, connect them." At first, I didn't understand what she meant, but then I started trying it. Instead of writing just "to improve," I wrote full mini sentences like, "I want to improve my English," or "I'm improving my pronunciation." I tried to connect new words with my own life, and that worked. Every time I used new vocabulary in my journal or while talking to myself, my brain remembered it better because it wasn't just a random word anymore. It became part of my story. So that's my first tip. Use new words in personal sentences, not lists. The second thing that helped me was visual memory. I'm a very visual person, so I started making small mental pictures. For example, when I learned the word confused, I imagined myself standing in front of a map, not knowing where to go. When I learned excited, I imagined my face before going on a trip. Those pictures helped me feel the words, and when you add emotion to memory, it stays. The third tip is something I call mini speaking practice. Every night before bed, I would think about my day, but in English. Not full sentences, not perfect grammar. Just small thoughts like, "Today I was busy. I met my friend. She told me a funny story. I felt happy." It took only 5 minutes, but it trained my brain to recall words automatically. And soon I started remembering phrases during real conversations. And here's one more secret. I stopped punishing myself for forgetting words. Before, every time I forgot something, I would feel so frustrated. But now I just smile and say, my brain is updating. That small mindset change made a huge difference. Instead of fear, I started to feel curiosity. What's that word again? Let me remember. When you make learning light and playful, your brain relaxes and then it remembers faster. So if you often forget words, remember this. You don't need a perfect memory, you just need practice with meaning. Use the words that matter to you. Speak them out loud and smile when you forget, because every forgotten word is just waiting to come back stronger next time. In the next part, I'll share how I practiced real conversations, even when I didn't have native speakers around me. That was one of the most powerful things I ever did for my English.
Part 4. How I Practice Speaking Without Native Speakers. Hey everyone, it's Crystal again. So, in the last part, I told you how I trained my brain to remember words. But now, let's talk about something even more important: how to actually practice speaking English when you don't have anyone to talk to. Because, trust me, I've been there. When I started learning English, I didn't have native speakers around me. No English-speaking friends, no international classmates, no fancy conversation clubs. It was just me, my phone, and a dream to speak fluently someday. At first, I felt kind of stuck. I thought, how can I ever get better if I have no one to talk to? But soon I realized I did have someone to talk to. Me. And that's how I started what I call solo speaking practice. It may sound a little funny, but it completely changed how I learned. Every morning, I'd talk to myself in English while getting ready. I'd say things like, "Okay, Crystal, time to brush your teeth. It's a sunny day. I feel great today." Or even, what should I wear? Maybe the blue sweater. At first, it felt weird, I won't lie. But after a few days, it started to feel natural, almost like a friendly inner dialogue. I was teaching my brain to think in English, not just translate from my first language. Then I started doing something even more fun. I called it my mirror talk sessions. I'd stand in front of the mirror, look at myself, and just speak for a few minutes. Sometimes I would describe how my day went. Today was busy. I met my friend at the cafe. We talked about our plans. Other times, I'd talk about my goals or emotions. I feel tired but happy. I'm proud of myself for studying today. These mirror sessions helped me improve my pronunciation, facial expressions, and confidence. Because when you look at yourself while speaking, you start noticing how your face moves, how your mouth forms sounds, and how you express feelings. It's like you become your own English coach. Another thing I did was shadowing. If you haven't heard of it, it's when you listen to someone speak and try to repeat what they say at the same time, almost like an echo. I'd find a short YouTube video, maybe from a podcast or a TV show, and I'd mimic the speaker's rhythm and tone. Sometimes I'd pause and repeat lines several times until it sounded natural. This method helped me not only with pronunciation, but also with speaking flow. And let me tell you, it's not about sounding exactly like the native speaker. It's about training your mouth and your ears to work together. When you do that, your speech starts to sound smoother and more confident. I also started recording myself speaking. Oh my goodness, the first time I listened back, I almost cried. I thought, do I really sound like that? But after a while, it became my favorite learning tool. I could hear my mistakes, fix them, and notice my progress. One of my little rituals was to record a short daily English diary. Every evening, I'd record 1 or 2 minutes of me talking about my day. It didn't have to be perfect. I just wanted to speak. And after a few weeks, I started hearing improvement in my confidence and fluency. Sometimes, when I wanted to make it more interactive, I'd pretend to be two people.
Yes, really. I'd ask myself questions like, how was your day, Crystal? Oh, it was good. I went shopping. What did you buy? I bought a new book. It sounds funny, but it's actually great for training natural conversation patterns. So, if you don't have someone to practice with, don't worry. You can practice every single day. Your mirror can be your conversation partner. Your phone can record your thoughts. Your favorite YouTube speaker can become your teacher. It's not about who you practice with, it's about how often you practice. Consistency is everything. And slowly, you'll notice something amazing. You'll start speaking without planning every word. Your sentences will just flow. And one day, you'll catch yourself thinking, wow, I'm actually speaking English confidently. In the next part, I'll tell you how I stayed motivated and kept improving, even on the days when I wanted to give up.
Part 5. How I stayed motivated and kept going. Hey everyone, it's Crystal again. So far, I've told you how I started speaking, practiced alone, and slowly built my confidence. But today, I want to be really honest with you. There were so many moments when I wanted to give up. Yes, even me. Even after all that progress, there were days when I thought, why am I doing this? Maybe I'll never sound natural. Maybe I'll never be fluent. I remember one day very clearly. I was trying to speak English with a tourist in my city, and suddenly my mind went completely blank. I forgot simple words like change, museum, even ticket. I just stood there, frozen, my face red, trying to remember. After that, I went home and cried a little. I felt so embarrassed. But later that night, I thought about something important. I realized that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. If I stop every time I make a mistake, I'll never get anywhere. So I decided to do something different. Instead of getting upset when I forgot words, I started celebrating small wins. For example, if I managed to speak for 1 full minute without switching to my native language, that was a victory. If I learned one new phrase and actually used it, another win. And little by little, these small moments started to build my confidence again. I also made a rule for myself. Never compare my English to others. Because when you look at someone speaking fluently, it's easy to think, wow, they're amazing. I'll never be that good. But what you don't see is how many hours they practiced, how many times they made mistakes, and how many times they felt exactly like you do. One thing that helped me stay motivated was journaling in English. I wrote about my feelings, goals, and progress, not just grammar exercises, but real thoughts. Some days I wrote things like, today I practiced for 10 minutes. It wasn't perfect, but I tried. Other days, I understood a full YouTube video without subtitles. I'm proud of myself. Seeing those small steps written down made me realize I was improving, slowly but surely. Another thing that helped me was changing my mindset. Instead of thinking, I have to study English, I started saying, I get to study English. It sounds small, but it made a big difference. Learning a language is not a punishment, it's a gift. It's a chance to connect with people, to understand new cultures, to express yourself in a new way. And of course, I didn't only study hard, I made learning fun. I listened to songs, watched TV shows with subtitles, and even played English games. Sometimes I'd sing my favorite songs out loud and try to understand every lyric. It made me laugh, and it made me feel alive. But the most powerful motivation came from this thought.
I didn't start learning English just to pass a test or impress someone. I started because I wanted to express who I am in another language. And that's something worth working for. Whenever I felt like giving up, I reminded myself of my why. Why did I start? Why does it matter to me? And that simple question always brought me back. If you're watching this and you've ever felt tired or frustrated, I want you to remember this. You are not alone. Every English learner, including me, has bad days. But what really matters is that you keep going, even when it's hard. Progress doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence. Even if you only practice for 10 minutes a day, do it with heart. Because one day you'll look back and realize, I didn't give up. I kept going. And now I can speak. In the next part, I'll tell you how all of this, the hard days, the fun days, the lonely practice, finally led me to something amazing. The moment I realized I could actually speak English confidently.
Part 6. The day I finally spoke English confidently. Hi again, it's Crystal. I've told you about my struggles, my practice, my fears, and all the little victories along the way. But today, I want to share something really special. The day I finally realized that I could speak English confidently. It didn't happen during an exam. It didn't happen in class. It happens in the most unexpected place, a coffee shop. One weekend, I was sitting in a small cafe reading a book in English. A couple of tourists came in and sat at the table next to mine. After a few minutes, they looked confused, checking their phones and the menu. Finally, one of them turned to me and asked, "Excuse me, do you know if there is Wi-Fi here?" And without even thinking, I answered, just like that. "Oh, yes, the password's written on the board over there." Then they asked, "Are you from here? Your English sounds great." And I smiled and said, "Thank you. I've been practicing for a while." We started talking about where they were from, what places to visit in the city, and somehow the conversation lasted for almost 20 minutes. The most amazing part? I didn't pause. I didn't translate in my head. I didn't panic. I just spoke, naturally, freely. When they left, I sat there for a few minutes, completely still. And then I smiled so hard, I almost cried. Because at that moment, I realized something powerful. I was speaking English. Not perfectly, but confidently. All the nights I spent practicing, all the mistakes I made, all the times I felt embarrassed, they were worth it. Every single one of them. That day, something changed inside me. I stopped saying I'm learning English and started saying I speak English. It wasn't about grammar anymore. It wasn't about sounding like a native speaker. It was about being able to express myself, my thoughts, my emotions, my personality in another language. After that, I started speaking more. I joined online communities, made friends from different countries, and even helped others who were just starting out. It felt amazing to tell someone, "Hey, I've been where you are. Don't worry, it gets easier." You see, confidence doesn't come suddenly. It grows quietly. In every little conversation, every small success, every mistake you learn from. Confidence isn't about never forgetting a word. It's about knowing that it's okay if you do.
because you can always find another way to express yourself. If I could go back and talk to the version of me who was afraid to speak, I'd tell her this: you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave enough to start. And I want to tell you the same thing. If you forget words when you speak English, it's okay. If you make mistakes, it's okay. If you feel nervous, it's okay. It means you're learning. It means you care. And one day you'll have your own coffee shop moment. The day when you realize, wow, I'm actually speaking English. That's when all the effort suddenly makes sense. That's when you stop doubting yourself. And that's when you start enjoying the journey, not just the destination. So, my friend, keep going. Speak, practice, laugh at your mistakes, celebrate your wins. Because every word you say, even the wrong ones, brings you closer to the confident English speaker you're becoming. And maybe one day you'll be the one sitting in a cafe talking easily in English, while someone nearby watches you and thinks, wow, I wish I could speak like that. You'll smile because you'll know you once felt exactly the same way. And you'll remember what I said today. Confidence isn't about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking anyway.